Tata Group-owned Air India has successfully placed an order for 470 passenger planes with France's Airbus and American plane maker Boeing. This is one of the largest aircraft purchased in the history of commercial aviation. The deals include 220 planes from Boeing, 250 from Airbus. The mega deal is expected to be worth more than $80 billion. If converted into Indian rupees, it stands at 64,000 crore rupees. The carrier plans to buy 40 long-distance wide-body jets as well as 140 single-aisle aircraft from Airbus. From rival Boeing, it said it would buy 190 of the narrow-body jets, 20 twin-aisles, with an option to purchase another 70 jets. This deal is now the biggest ever commercial aviation deal in India. The deal is being estimated, as I said, to be worth $80 billion, but could actually increase in value because there's an option to buy more. Before this, Indigo had done two of India's biggest deals, one in 2019 and another in 2015. But this is also now one of the biggest aviation deals globally. Already the single largest purchase order with a whopping 470 aircrafts, which can be further expanded by 70 planes. In fact, it could, in that sense, be the biggest global deal, overtaking the one by Emirates Airlines in 2013, which was a little bit more in value. Air India is not yet another project, said Tata Sons chair Natarajan Chandrasekhar, adding that it was akin to a national project. He added a lot of emotions are involved in this project. There are huge expectations. Just goes on to show what it means for the group. In a statement, the carrier also said this is an important step to offer a world-class proposition to global travelers with an Indian heart. These new aircraft will modernize the airline's fleet and onboard products and dramatically expand its global network. The first of the new aircraft will enter service in late 2023, which is this year, but the bulk will arrive from mid-2025 onwards. Remember, all of these deals come under Vihan.ai. This is a transformation plan which was launched by Air India last year. The plan has outlined a detailed roadmap for the next 5 years to establish itself as a world-class airline. As Air India secured its biggest ever aircraft deal, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a telephonic conversation with US President Joe Biden and welcomed the landmark deal. Joe Biden too hailed the deal between the American plane maker Boeing and Air India, calling it a historic agreement. What caught everyone's eye is the statement released by the White House. Let me read that out. It says, and I quote, "This purchase will support over 1 million American jobs across 44 states. And many will not require a 4-year college degree. This announcement also reflects the strength of the US-India economic partnership," unquote. So an Indian company will be creating and supporting jobs for over 1 million Americans. How times have changed. Here is more of what Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Macron had to say.
निकट भविष्य में भारत एविएशन सेक्टर में विश्व का तीसरा सबसे बड़ा मार्केट बनने जा रहा है। कई आकलनों के अनुसार भारत को अगले 15 वर्षों में 2000 से अधिक विमानों की आवश्यकता होगी। आज की ऐतिहासिक घोषणा इस बढ़ती मांग को पूरा करने में सहायक होगी। भारत की मेक इन इंडिया, मेक फॉर द वर्ल्ड विजन के तहत एरोस्पेस मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में अनेक नए अवसर खुल रहे हैं।
The first one is that Airbus is contributing to the outstanding development of India, and the new 250 aircrafts which will be delivered to Air India will be one more step in this direction. There is a deep commitment in France to provide the state-of-the-art, the most efficient technologies available to India, and to be part of your Made in India strategy. French government has put all my energy for the last 6 years to reinvigorate French industry. And beyond aviation, we are building a new ambition in the sectors of nuclear energy, microchips, space, cyber, biotech, to mention a few of them.
A quick primer of how this really helps Air India. Remember, the carrier, as I mentioned, plans to become a world-class proposition for global travelers. So this is a step in direction of that. It will help modernize the Air India fleet. It also helps it to expand its network. Remember, it is partner in some other airlines as well. Help it to reclaim its pole position as far as the Indian aviation market is concerned. We know before its takeover, Air India had slipped. And the acquisition, especially a wide-bodied aircraft, will allow the penetration into lucrative markets like the US and Australia, where there are a lot of Indian travelers flying on. But we do take this question to an expert joining us in just a bit. With Air India adding wings, can the airline become a global Maharaja? A special guest is joining us. Author of The Descent of Air India and a former executive director of Air India, Jitendra Bhargav, is now joining us to talk more about this. This mega deal, sir, has been announced by the new Air India. It just goes on to show, first up, the potential that Air India had. Do you believe the Tata Group is now finally unleashing the potential of the airline?
You know, we have been talking about India emerging as a major growth center for several years now. The unfortunate part was that Air India, as the national carrier, government told, did not have the resources, so could not augment the fleet. And the advantage of Indian market was taken by the Gulf carriers, the Southeast Asian carriers. And we had all been advocating that we need an Indian carrier which must harness the India growth story. Now, you can't have a foreign carrier funneling the Indian traffic from various Indian cities, taking them to their hub, and then flying them to destinations in Europe, United States, Australia, and other countries. Now, when the disinvestment took place, one was, of course, the expectation that Air India has been given a fresh lease of life. But Tata's, within 13 months of takeover, have announced a mega deal, working out aircraft both for long-haul operations, 70 of them. I'm not basically dividing the aircraft order between Airbus and Boeing. I'm dividing between narrow-bodied aircraft, which flies on the domestic sector and the neighboring countries, and the long-haul, the Europe and United States, Japan, Australia, etc. So 70 of these aircraft is a big number. And as we've been told, that the first 6 of the A350 aircraft of Airbus will be inducted in the second half of 2023, which means it's not just the huge aggressive network that we are seeing, we are also seeing the haste, the urgency that Tata's is attaching to the growth story. So the best thing that could have possibly happened to Air India, first, the disinvestment decision that government took and took it to the logical end, notwithstanding the criticism that it had. And I am very, very forthright in stating that the mega order placed yesterday just goes on to show how much of the potential had remained unexplored because Air India was owned by cash-starved government of India. And I'm not blaming government of India because they have resources which have to be used for education, health, infrastructure, etc.
Okay. Can you give me a sense, though, of what this will do for Air India as an airline in India and globally, and what does this do for the the Indian market as well, for India's position as well?
You see, when Air India was disinvested and Tata's took over, they made one statement. We want to live the legacy of JRD Tata. We want to give the world a first-class airline. Now, what I foresee is, or the study or the work that has gone in these last 12 months, is basically how do we live that dream? How do we fulfill the aspirations of the people? So this mega order one, of course, is the domestic sectors, Southeast Asian carriers, which have been exploiting the Indian market and the Gulf carriers. So it will be an Indian carrier now doing it. Now, what's the advantage to us? Let's put it this way. When Gulf countries order aircraft on the strength of Indian market, or the Southeast Asian carriers expand their fleet, where is the employment generated? It's generated in those countries, the pilot, the cabin crew, and others. Where are the taxes earned? Where do the airports kind of take the long haul, big aircraft traffic, etc.? So it's, for us, when you hear Joe Biden hailing the move, President Macron of France hailing the move, Prime Minister Modi himself being present at the Airbus announcement, what does it indicate basically? In a world which is fearing recession, a mega order of this size generates huge employment opportunities. A point underlined, underscored by no less a person than Joe Biden,
Yes.
who said 1 million jobs over spread of 42 states. Now look at the potential, and only Tatas could have done it. It's not just that they recognize the potential of Air India, recognize that people in their mind, particularly the older generation, the Indian diaspora abroad, have that emotional connect with Air India. They'd all been feeling, look, what's happening to Air India? And when I wrote my book, The Descent of Air India, I brought this factor out. That people want to fly Air India, but we are not living up to their expectations. And here is Tata's doing just that. And you know, the induction of this huge number of aircraft, if I have to translate is, one, they said about 3-4 months ago that we want to capture 30% of the domestic market over a period of 5 years. They're on track. They may do so earlier. Air India has currently 47 weekly flights, non-stop flights to the United States of America to 5 cities. There are many cities in the United States. Houston, for example, Boston, Los Angeles, which is not being served. And why should an Indian passenger travel from Bangalore, Hyderabad to Mumbai, Delhi to take a flight to the United States? And he feels particularly that if I have to make a stop, why not make in Abu Dhabi or Dubai? So once you have 70 long-haul aircraft being inducted over the next few years, you will have multiple stations from which the flights will originate. So all the gaps that we had, which had remained unfilled, I would say, are going to be filled up.
Okay.
So it's a big, big day. It was not just yesterday. The story as it unfolds, everybody would be happy, number one. Number two, this mega order has sent one large signal. It's not just the President of the United States and President of France. Is that India, as an aviation country, which we have been aiming to be the third largest market, has arrived on the global platform.
Okay.
And you can't take Indian market lightly. So far, carriers have been exploiting the Indian market, but not giving India the recognition that it deserves. When Tata's own Air India established its rightful place, people would say, here it comes. And we can now think of what J.R.D. Tata had dreamt of and what Tata is realizing the dream.
Okay. Can I ask you a quick follow-up though? When you talk about especially these long-haul flights, do you believe the prices of those journeys will also come down? Will they become more affordable when you're flying an Indian carrier? Something like that, a benefit to the end user?
You know, this is a question that is often asked on the fares. Fares are determined by competition. Fares fluctuate during seasons. And once you have a fairly large quantum of capacity deployment, fares naturally go down because all airlines endeavor to fill up the seats. And competition is not being restricted.
Okay.
But what do people look forward to? A, safe travel, which will be ensured. Quality travel, standard of service. We can all look forward to it. There are no compromises as far as Tata-owned Air India is concerned because funds is not a constraining factor.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Everybody's genuinely happy with this deal, and certainly it is signaling a rise for Air India and for the Indian industry as well. I thank you, Jitendra Bhargav, for joining us. With that, it's a wrap on Plain Speak. News Epicenter.